Day one of the Alex Murdaugh murder trial started with the selection of a jury and ended with emotional opening statements. News 3's Andrew Davis was in the courtroom today for testimony, and he is joining us live now from Walterboro. Andrew?
Well, prosecutors say Alex Murdaugh committed these two brutal murders and then tried to cover them up. The defense went with one simple aspect. He didn't do it, and that the prosecution doesn't have the evidence that will back any of that up. And after just 2 hours after this jury was seated in 8 women, 4 men, they had to hear very graphic testimony during opening arguments.
The evidence is going to be such that you're going to reach the inescapable conclusion that Alex murdered Maggie and Paul, that he was the storm, that the storm was coming for them. And the storm arrived on June 7th, 2021, just like the storms that are heading here right now, that they died as a result.
But the moment everyone will be talking about was when prosecutors played a video in the courtroom, one that could hurt the defense's case. News 3's Andrew Davis is live outside the Colleton County Courthouse in Walterboro with more on that. Andrew.
Well, I'll tell you, we've got multiple moments to talk about from today, including one that just happened a few minutes ago. But that video you're talking about was the talk of the room and the entire area and maybe the nation this morning. It's a video we've heard rumor of for months. It's coming from Paul's phone. It happens at 8:44, just a few minutes before they were both killed, he and his mother Maggie. And it appears to have Maggie, Paul, and Alex's voice all on the same video.
It's a guinea.
This is a chicken. Come here, Cash. Come here, Bob. Cash.
The video just shows the dog, and at first, prosecutors never said who the other voices were, but it was believed to be Alex and Maggie Murdaugh. This was made, according to experts, just 5 minutes before both Paul and Maggie stopped answering their phones. It's a big deal because Alex told investigators in an interview 2 days after the murders he hadn't seen Paul or Maggie since supper. It's a video the prosecutors played in court just 2 days ago.
The last time that you saw Paul and Maggie's when y'all were eating supper.
Yes, sir.
And then just this afternoon, one of Paul's own best friends took the stand and admitted to the jury and to the entire courtroom that the voices heard on that video, 100%, he says, were of Maggie and Alex Murdaugh, thus destroying much of an alibi that Alex had put out to investigators in that second interview.
It was just so bad. They did it so bad. He's such a good boy, too.
Now, the prosecution says Alex Murdaugh said, I did him so bad. But today, the defense tried to make sure the jury heard their version that they did him so bad instead. They even played the clip you just heard at 1/3 speed to emphasize it all. Well, Buster Murdaugh says his father was devastated when he heard the news and found out that his wife and son were killed. His family was very close. They would always travel to games when he was younger, and in fact were just at a USC baseball game the weekend before the killings happened. So when Alex called Buster on June 7, 2021, the last thing on his mind was murder.
He told me that my mom and brother had been shot. I kind of just sat there for a minute. I was in shock.
What Buster Murdaugh was not shocked about was his father's drug use. Buster says Alex had gone to rehab at least once in 2018 and then did home detox, as he called it, several times as well. After Buster took the stand, the focus moved to the actual shooting. A defense expert explained why he says there could have been 2 shooters and how the bullet holes and shells at the scene show that Alex, who's 6 foot 3 inches tall, is unrealistic to fire shots that entered the buildings at just under 4 feet.
So could you say to a degree of engineering certainty, more probably than not, that Alex Murdaugh on the night of June 7th did not fire that shot into the quail pen?
In my opinion, it's very unlikely that he fired that shot.
Can you say to a degree of engineering certainty, more probably than not, that whoever shot this shot, or these shots, well, first of all, the quail pen shot was 5'2" to 5'4"?
That is the most likely explanation, yes.
Now, Mike Sutton said that Murdaugh's Suburban also did not slow down enough to throw Maggie's phone out the window and into the woods about a mile away from Moselle. And the truck's headlights also could have shined on this crime scene, meaning Alec could have seen his wife and son's body even before he stepped out of the truck. Well, there are two people everybody in this case want to hear from. Curtis' cousin Eddie Smith, he could take the stand as soon as this week. And I have learned exclusively from a source that Alex Murdaugh is planning to take the stand himself in his own defense next. It was a source close to his legal team that told me officially that he wants to and is now on the schedule to testify on the stand. We've heard from Alex several times during this trial, but each time it's been on video, either from the night of the murder or in interviews the days after. While they could change their mind, this would be the first time that Alec has talked live about the crimes, his son or wife, since the murders happened in June 7th, 2021. News 3 has learned once again that Alec should testify in his own defense as early as next week.
Most of all, I'm sorry to Mags and Pawpaw. I would never intentionally do anything to hurt either one of them.
Murdaugh spoke about his family life, his love for his wife Maggie, and his bond with his youngest son Paul. The court adjourned about 30 minutes ago. They will be back tomorrow morning at 9:30. WSAV's Andrew Davis was in the courtroom for what can only be described as riveting testimony. Andrew is joining us now live at the courthouse in Colleton County.
Absolutely true, Tina. It's something that everybody's been watching for and waiting for basically 2 years plus now. And a defiant Alex Murdaugh in the first 3 minutes of his testimony said simply, "I love my wife. I loved Paul," and that there was no way that he could take a gun and shoot either of them ever. It was just the beginning of 5 hours plus on the stand, closer to 6 for the murder suspect who denied his role in the killings, but did not deny lying and stealing.
But once I lied, I continued to lie, yes, sir.
Wow.
But what a tangled web we weave. But once I told the lie, then I told my family, I had to keep lying.
Now, Murdaugh admitted to lying about being at the kennels the night of the murder after getting caught on video. He blamed it on his addiction, saying it made him paranoid, but also said he distrusted SLED investigators as well. Alec admitting he stole from the law firm, from clients, and that he wanted to die in September of 2021 when he asked Eddie Smith to come to the side of the road and kill him. But he denied he was reading text messages for hours after the murders or Googling restaurants. Alec did continue to talk about something else, though, the threats that Paul got after the boat crash that killed Mallory Beach, and how he thinks they could be connected to the killings.
What were you referring to?
I was referring to Paul got so many threats. Didn't take serious. Think twice about. So I'm just telling him, Paul, I should have known.
Now, when he was asked if he was ready to answer the questions from prosecutors, Alex said, "You can ask me anything you want." And they did. The state focused on Alex's admissions of lies and stealing from clients, going one by one through all the people that he took thousands of dollars from, specifically pushing the fact that he looked people in the eye and lied to them. The jury listened intently to all of Alex's admissions, both in the morning and the afternoon. At one point, a juror felt bad for him and pushed a box of Kleenex towards him while he was on the stand, talking about Paul and Maggie. Most of the time, the jurors were stone-faced, listening intently to what he had to say. And they're going to continue listening tomorrow. He's expected to do 3 to 4 hours at least more of testimony and cross-examination with prosecutors, and possibly more with the defense after that, before 2 expert witnesses are called, and potentially the defense could rest its case. There's also a lot of emotion still. That we got a little bit of crying from Alec in there, but we really got a lot of details. I'm here with Joe McCullough, our legal expert. Joe, we're going to start at the end because it's very fresh for everybody's mind. The idea of lying and inventing the lie seemed to be a big moment there that I think the jury got a piece of.
Yeah, I think the prosecution's doing a very good job at this point. breaking it down second by second with Murdaugh, pushing him to say, when is that second that you thought you needed to begin lying? And he's done it in excruciating detail, but you know, it's being effective.
It was a day, really all day, has been Alex Murdaugh and Creighton Waters from the prosecution as Waters continues to focus on the fact of lies. The lies that Alex Murdaugh told previously, the lies that he continues to tell when it comes to financial crimes, the lies he believes he's telling right now about the night of the murders, and the fact that he told lies to investigators, to his family, to his friends, and to his clients.
I'm curious about the jury once again, because the prosecution was going through that presentation where it was just a laundry list of all of the people he has lied to, really trying to drive home that point. I kind of lost count at how many people they were really mentioning there, but that seemed like a powerful point of the presentation. So what was the jury doing at that time? What could you see on their faces, or what could you glean from their reaction to that?
Well, Ben, you're not wrong. I think everybody's kind of lost track of all these people because there are so many of them. And I think the jury is a little done with some of the financial crimes things. They've gone through so many numbers, thrown so many names on this. They are focused on testimony when Alec is talking about the murders right now. They are not as focused when you're talking about the financial things. Remember, we're 5 weeks in and they beat this down for days on end with details and numbers and facts and figures, whether it's the steps on the cell phone or each and every single person that he made money from and stole from. And now he's admitted to all those too. You know he's a liar. Now they want to hear why he killed his wife and son, because that's the question that's on everybody's mind. This is not a financial crimes trial, and the defense has said it, and they are absolutely right with this. This is a murder trial, and they have to prove that Alex Murdaugh is a murderer. Welcome everybody to the trial of Alex Murdaugh, Endgame. It has been a very long process here, more than 4 years since this all started, and now we're finally at a point where we're in the line to go ahead and get that verdict. I'm Andrew Davis from WSAV out of Savannah and Hilton Head. Thank you for joining our simulcast with WCBD.
And I'm Riley Benson out of Charleston County, Berkeley County, Dorchester County for WCBD in Charleston. Andrew, let's talk about it. We're at the midway point of week 6. We heard 81 witnesses, 67 for the state, some of those repeats, 14 for the defense. You estimate 175 hours of testimony, more than 1,000 pieces of evidence. And we still have some time to go. The light
We're still not done yet.
We're not done yet. The light's at the end of the tunnel, but certainly this has been a long trial here in Walterboro.
Absolutely. And we thought we were going to get to the defense closing arguments. We'll talk about that in a minute. But instead, it was all about the prosecution today. Creighton Waters taking more than 3 hours to lay out his case one more time.
Well, we knew this was going to be a lengthy process, right? They both asked for, well, the defense asked for a time limit on this. They said no, so here we are 3 hours, 15 minutes later. You know, the state really walking through a number of factors and points, kind of hitting on things that we've heard now for 5.5 weeks.
Absolutely. We wanted to start exactly with what he started with. Creighton Waters' opening arguments, those first moments that he presented to the jury today.
On June 7th, 2021, at the Moselle property in Colleton County, Maggie Murdaugh and Paul Murdaugh were brutally and maliciously murdered at the kennels by Alex Murdaugh.
That's a problem for the prosecution. They started in their opening argument and said the motive here is the financial crimes created a situation. All was going to be revealed. Everything was going to unravel on June the 10th in a meeting or in a court hearing. And that was the motive. And somehow now, today, we strayed into this pivot to now he's a family annihilator, a person who snaps and kills his family, slaughters them. And I think the jury may feel a little bit betrayed. The only thing going for them on that score is that was 6 weeks ago. And this is a tired jury. Jury fatigue set in weeks ago, and I don't think the argument today really lessened that fatigue.
That's what's interesting is even we were looking at bites today to try to get those sound bites from the trial. I went back to day 6 or 7 and had no idea who was there because it's been so long, and I know they were in the same thing. No notes out there. That's been a big question for a lot of people. You know, in a trial this long, what does that mean for the jury, and how does it hurt or help either side?
It hurts both sides. I mean, that's a long trial, 6 week. You can't rely on a memory on a 6-week trial. And either side would have had an easy avenue and opening statements to say, hey guys, if y'all want notes, ask the judge, and the judge would have given them notes. I think that goes to the inexperience of the Attorney General's office in trying murder cases.
Welcome to News 3 at 10. The trial of Alex Murdaugh, Endgame. It may be the biggest surprise of all that we're here with you at 10 o'clock on a Thursday, just a few hours after the jury got this call and got the decision, got their chance to go ahead and say something about Alex Murdaugh, and they did. In just about 3 hours, they stepped up and made that decision and decided Alex Murdaugh's fate. Listen for yourself.
I understand that there is a verdict. You may bring the jury. The defendant will rise. Madam Clerk, you may publish the verdict.
Guilty verdict. Signed by the forelady, 3-2-23.
Guilty on all 4 counts, the 2 weapons charges, the 2 murder charges as well. Alex Murdaugh stone-faced as he faced these charges. No real emotion, more emotion from his lawyers than actually from him. And behind him, his own family, his sister Lynn, his son Buster, in somewhat tears, but holding a lot of it together as they listen to the verdict and potentially watch as Alex Murdaugh could take his last steps ever as a free man. We are here in Walterboro, and I've got experts from the legal side for me. Sean Kent has been with me all day talking about this and really giving me great insight. And we brought in Justin Bamberg as well. Justin, since you're new to this, first reaction when you heard the jury is back with a verdict?
I was surprised at how quick. I mean, that I personally expected them to deliberate tonight, have dinner on the government, take a break, come back tomorrow, and reach a verdict by late afternoon. So when I hear verdict, instantly I said, oh, he's guilty. Alex going to prison. No and, if, or buts about it. It was way too fast.
Yeah, that's exactly what you said, too. When it came down quickly, you said if it's a quick verdict, that's going to be bad for Alex.
Period. Criminal justice system, 20-something years of doing this, everybody knows, especially in the case of this magnitude, quick verdicts mean guilty. There was no 2 ways about it. When we saw people running out of here, we knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm with Justin. Any pundit out there who's telling you they expected that jury to come back tonight is just lying to you or doesn't understand the system. Nobody expected that. I expected maybe tomorrow, 2-3 o'clock. I thought there was a small chance of a hung jury. I didn't think there was any chance of a not guilty, but I was shocked.
Was it the makeup of the jury? Was it what that said 3 hours? I mean, we sat here for 26 days of testimony, and they asked for a monitor, listened to some video, watched some video, and they were done in 3 hours.
When I'm watching the jury, so most of the time I was in trial, I know facts. I'm watching the jury. I want to see how they react. I want to see what they like, what they don't like. And what I saw out of the jury there were early on some people whose minds were made up. Oh, he guilty. You know, at one point when Alex took the stand, a juror literally turned their back to him, right? So there were some people whose minds I think were made up. And I think when the defense case got presented, they needed a smoking gun to change their mind. And when they didn't get it, that was a done deal for them.
This comes almost 2 years since Maggie and Paul were murdered at the family's Moselle property. The jury convicting Alex less than 24 hours ago. And now we have Alex mugshot. The Department of Corrections tweeting this picture saying he will undergo a medical evaluation before being taken to a maximum security prison. Earlier today, Alex appeared in court in a jumpsuit and handcuffs, and right now the disbarred attorney is set to serve 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. But this afternoon, Murdaugh's defense team promised to fight his conviction. His attorneys say they will appeal the guilty verdict within 10 days. And we are covering all sides tonight with reaction from the defense, and we're hearing exclusively from the prosecution.
WSAV's Andrew Davis is following every step of this case. He is joining us now live from the Colleton County Courthouse with a closer look at today's sentencing.
Well, Alex's attorneys say it's just a bad investigation. The prosecution said the jury made the right decision. Both sides, though, now know that Alex Murdaugh is headed to prison. 2 consecutive life sentences without parole for murder.
Oh, what tangle web we weave. What did you mean by that?
It meant when I lied, I continue to lie.
And the question is, when will it end?
Judge Clifton Newman laying out Alex's sentence while he stood in shackles and a jail jumpsuit in front of his sister, his brother John Marvin, and his only remaining son, Buster. Alex once again professed his innocence, saying he would never hurt Maggie. He would never hurt Paul. After the hearing, his defense team echoed that, saying the prosecution, though, never proved that case.
They won this case the day the judge bought into letting them put every piece of, stealing from kids who lost their mother, from somebody with pancreatic cancer, somebody that's a paraplegic. I mean, all of that 2.5 weeks, by the time they got done with it, it didn't matter about final argument. It didn't matter about what we put up. They would never, ever, ever acquit him after that.
That really was powerful.
In a sit-down interview exclusively with News 3, South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson and prosecutor Creighton Waters told me it was a team effort that made this happen to make sure the jurors heard the message that Alex Murdaugh was not just a liar, he's a criminal and a murderer.
And I'm thinking to myself, these jurors are sitting there. If my wife and son are brutally murdered 2 minutes after I leave the house, and I'm going to be saying, why didn't I stay? Why wasn't I there? If only. Yeah. And he never said that.
It's such a long process that I felt comfortable with leaving it in the jury's hands. Trial lawyers can be pretty superstitious. I don't like to think about the verdict, talk about the verdict, or anything like that. But I knew that I and the team, we had looked those jury in the eye. I knew Alex had done the same thing, and I felt confident that they would know that he had lied to them when he did that, and that would be a deciding factor.
Now, one of the jurors who did talk about the verdict said one of the key points that Alex didn't cry when he was on the stand, but instead just had those snot moments that you saw in the pictures and on the video. Said that was a big difference. Alex now will spend 45 days in that Kirkland Correctional Institute going through a variety of tests, including a mental evaluation, before being sent to a South Carolina maximum security prison. And once again, his attorneys have said when 10 days comes up, they will file an appeal. Tina, Ben?
And Andrew, what was the energy like in the courtroom during that sentencing hearing today?
All the energy got sucked out of the room last night, Ben. It was the weirdest feeling. It was a stunned silence last night when the verdict came down so quickly. Today, I think everybody had spent all their emotion, they had spent their energy, and it was just dead silence, including from Alex himself and his own family. His sister gasped slightly. Other than that, there was nothing to it. Buster started to tear up, but kept his stone face that he's kept throughout this entire trial. And all the media even really had nothing to say. They were just writing down Clifton Newman's words. And after that, it was just sort of done. And everyone walked away going, this long, arduous process is now finally over.
Andrew, you talked about the intake process and the number of days. Where will Alex Murdaugh end up after that's over?
That's really an interesting question, Tina, because where do you put him? He has so many ties in this low country area, but he's been in Columbia for a very long time as well, and he's known now throughout. So I think they're going to have to find some place not in our direct area because there are going to be too many ties here. I would expect him to go upstate somewhere possibly, or even in the Columbia area, to make sure, A, he's safe, because we don't know what's going to happen. You're seeing the mugshot there. I mean, they had to shave his head. They did everything. He's a full-fledged inmate now, but he's still maybe the most celebrated inmate that they're going to have. So I think safety is going to be priority number one for them. I'll expect him to go probably somewhere in Columbia or farther north in the upstate. I'm in Walterboro. Andrew Davis, WSAV News 3. Back to you guys.
Andrew Davis there for us this whole time in Colleton County. Thank you so much.